Welcome to another podcast here in the Ram's Den. And today, my guest is Nathan McGovern, the legend that just went on Piers Morgan and played vegan bingo with him and made an absolute fool of Piers on his own show, which was very entertaining, mate. Thank you for agreeing to come on and have a chat with us today. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Absolutely pleasure to be here. Having a proper discussion, not like the one I was able to not have with Piers.
Yeah, we all knew from the moment, even before you opened your mouth, just when we've got someone from Animal Rebellion on, okay, we know how it's going to go. So it was a refreshing change to have you on and have this different strategy, man. So let's just dive right in. Actually, do you know what? Before we get into the Piers stuff, because let's give people actually an idea of who you are, because you know you are a real person, not just the dude that went on Piers Morgan. So what's your story, man? Like, give us a brief on how'd you get into animal rights. Let's start there, your vegan story, and yeah, a little bit about you.
Yeah, of course. So I'm a relatively new vegan, 8th of November 2020, so just over 2 years now. My story, as I remember it very vividly, it was like I switched like on a button. Like I watched the David Attenborough documentary, Life on Our Planet. Watched that, and I was like, oh, I need to sort myself out here.
Right.
I've always thought I'm an animal lover, blah blah blah. It's like time to like start aligning my actions with my morals. Took it from there.
Nice.
So yeah, went like overnight vegan. Then was like plodding along with that for a few months. Then I moved to London summer of last year. I've been looking to get involved in something in like the animal rights activism space. Felt that my consumer choices weren't enough. Went along to like an openly organised Animal Rebellion thing. It was the sit-in at the big McDonald's in Leicester Square. Ended up getting nicked, and then like just started volunteering part-time whilst I was doing a master's degree, and now I volunteer full-time for Animal Rebellion. It's my life, and I love it.
Very cool, mate. It's interesting that the David Attenborough documentary was the thing that switched you, because I'll be honest with you, I got a confession. I roasted Attenborough because I watched the documentary. I was very impressed, and then I researched him, and he's not vegan. He's not, forget the ethical stuff, right? If he's just talking about environment, he's not vegan. He's not even veggie. So even without the ethics side of things, if you just focus on the environment, he was hypocritical. And if you introduced ethics, he's incredibly hypocritical. I couldn't believe it, but it makes me happy to see that actually, even though I did roast him, that there's some good coming of even though he's a hypocrite.
Yeah.
Did you know that he's not?
Yeah, no, I did. It's incredibly frustrating a lot of the time, where it's like, Dave Danbury, like, to be fair to him, does do a lot for like the environmental movement, especially, but then in some ways doesn't back it up with his actions, and he has openly admitted to being a hypocrite. But there's still time for him to change and leave that legacy, I guess.
A couple of years, yeah. Unfortunately, only a couple of years. But yeah, it's an interesting one, and maybe it'll come up again at some point in the future. But people were very unhappy with me roasting him. By the way, that video got so much hate.
I can't imagine.
But oh yeah. But so let's talk about the beyond meat of it. Let's get to the beyond meat of it. The interview with Piers then. So well, let's talk about firstly around it, right? Because so you come along, you're a vegan, you're his arch enemy, you're even more his arch enemy because you're Animal Rebellion and he just despises Animal Rebellion. So when you get there, what exactly is the vibe with this? Like, just talk me through the process of I don't know, getting to the building, like how are people treating you? Just give us like a flavor of how it all went down.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Like I've been in the studio with Talk TV before, and like this time it was different. 100%. So like we were actually meant to be on Monday night, but they pushed us back a day. So that was already ringing a few warning bells of, they pushed it back a day so they can try something on us. Just constantly thinking, what's the stunt they're going to pull, basically. So yeah, I was kind of rushing around central London to get myself sorted, get my bingo printed out. After we'd like had a few chats, planned that one out. Got to the studio. All great. Got let into the building, and it's funny. Every time I've been in that studio, I've literally been man-marked by security.
Right.
Because I've got track record. I have glued myself to a microphone during an interview before.
Okay. Oh, right. Okay.
So that might be why. But yeah, so went in absolutely fine, got changed. Like initially I was like just wearing like a black Adidas t-shirt and jeans. And like they said that, oh, you can't have like brands, you can't have logos on. So the shirt I was wearing like wasn't my shirt. So they asked me to get changed. So that's first of all just kind of that little needle kind of yeah. And then the big thing is they didn't actually tell me I was going to be on with Aldo until we were about to walk onto set.
Right. Okay.
Which is like I was prepared for them to not tell me things and just roll with the punches. And it's something that you actually mentioned in the commentary that you did is like, you know, the makeup that they did with me. And I spent longer in the chair than I did, you know, the last couple of times that I've been in Talk TV. They did more makeup when I was in the chair. At the time I was thinking, I know exactly what you're doing. I just don't care.
Right. Okay.
Like,
so you think they were putting what bad makeup on you? You
yeah,
think they were trying to make you look...
you know, just kind of mismatch the skin tone with
mate, no way.
Which is like, honestly, like to me, it's just hilarious.
But they did a pretty bad job because you didn't look like I even now, like you look not much different than you looked on his show. So they did a bad job of making you look bad, right? And I don't think you looked bad. Like I said that in my reaction to it, like you looked healthy, young and healthy, right? So he's saying like, you know, pasty or whatever. I mean, I don't know. You seem like you got a naturally pale skin tone. I would guess you burn easily, right?
Oh yeah,
so that's
absolutely.
Right. There's nothing to do with your diet. That's just that's just your skin. But it's not by any means unhealthy. So I don't. They didn't achieve what they were going for. That's good at least, right?
Yeah.
Crazy. So what were you nervous going in there?
Not really. Like honestly, I'd been like psyching myself up for it.
Right.
Like mentally, just getting into that space. And like, you know, as I said, like before, like a few of us hopped on a Zoom to just really talk through, you know, how we're going to approach this interview. Don't leave anything to kind of chance, and just settled on the strategy that I ended up taking. So like that obviously gave me a lot of confidence of like, we'd planned it out, we talked through the eventualities. But yeah, there's always like the initial studio nerves, like they never go away, I don't think.
What was the strategy exactly then? Because obviously we saw what played out, but before you got in there, like what exactly did you have put down that you were going to do? Like what was the, I guess the step by step of this plan?
So I guess like the initial entry was going to be have a little bit of a friendly play around a bit of a Cristiano Ronaldo bit. Which, you know, obviously Piers loves that. Him and Gary Lineker have that ongoing feud. Just to start off on a bit of a light-hearted note, but then, you know, that didn't happen because he just went straight in with something that was on the bingo. So it's like, all right, pull that out. And just like, you know, like looking back at how he treated Orla, who is like a really good friend of mine, which obviously gave me a lot of motivation going into this as well. I was thinking, you know, he's always going to treat us like a joke. He's never going to engage in a serious debate with us. So there is no point going down that avenue, because the only way I think I could succeed doing that perhaps is like if I start shouting over him and screaming over him, and then his easy response is angry vegan stereotype.
Good point. That's probably a good critique of Joey Carbstrong. Unfortunately, that is what Joey goes for. The I will talk louder than you, which it is kind of. I mean, it's one of the only, I guess, two strategies that works with Piers: either shout at him or take the piss out of him. And both of them have their pros and cons, right? But yeah, you're right. The con of doing the Joey style is that you get labeled angry vegan. The con of doing it your style was that people that don't get that this was a strategy, as I said, they think you're arrogant, but you're not. Clearly, you're not. This is not you in this room with him. This is a character. The same way he's doing a character. You just played him at his own game, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, you know, kind of, like you say, like one of the only ways to do Piers is to out Piers him.
That's a good way of putting it, actually. Out Piers him.
So yeah,
and so
that was a
go ahead.
basic
Go continue, mate.
Of just kind of, you know, go in with the left wing kind of left field comment of, you know, that does disarm him initially and gives me the time and space to talk, and also just kind of in a way shows up like he has the same arguments over and over again. Like I had 5 of the things he said out of the 9 on a bingo card, right?
Yeah.
And just take it from there. And like, you know, if I can slot in serious stuff around that, I will. But making a focal point of the interview, the Piers, if you're going to treat the animal and climate emergencies like a joke, why should I not treat this show like a joke?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And your plan to get a bit of time by throwing him off worked initially, at least, because you had the longest gap that I've seen him give any vegan, and I don't think it was because he was just, he didn't know what to do. I think he was processing the fact you brought a bingo card, and it gave you a big chance. You even had pauses. You were able to speak in a way that was powerful, because normally I've noticed the vegans just try to like just hammer as much info as possible because you know you've not got much time. Whereas he gave you so much time that you were able to pause between your sentences and leave space. I couldn't believe that. That's the first time I've seen him allow a vegan to do that without interjecting, right? So you really did throw him off with the bingo card. So it was a really good plan. And was the bingo card your idea, or was that like a team?
So it was an idea that was whirling around in my head, but I have to give
Right.
credit to the people that helped me plan to really fill it out. Like the best one on there, the Meghan Markle, I cannot claim credit for whatsoever. You know, that was actually Orla that had that one.
Oh, great.
So that's like
Amazing.
some fantastic kind of achievement for her. And that his face when that came up was a picture.
Yeah. Yeah. You saw it on the, well, I guess they didn't really zoom in, but they zoomed in on the aftermath when he leaned over and said, "What can I see the others?" Because he realized, I think at that moment he realized that this was a threat. I think up until then, well, okay, whatever, he knows my arguments. But when that one came up, that's when he realized my reputation's on the line here. Actually, what if he's got something really bad in there that's going to screw me? And then he tries to look, right. Oh, what else have you got? What else have you got? That was a great moment. Yeah, good props to all of them for
Yeah,
getting that one in there, because that was a good moment. So what was did you before the interview itself, like, was he just already live? So I guess you didn't get to like, you didn't get introduced or anything before going on, right? You were just straight on, or
so we had
did
a
you get a chance?
really brief exchange of words. So like
Okay.
before the interview, they did like a full body shot of me and Aldo trying to generate that kind of conflict frame
Okay.
for them.
Right.
Like,
Okay.
yeah, just really frame it in terms of I'm going to be shouting and laying into Aldo, that angry.
Okay. Okay.
And then, yeah, when I sat down at the table, had a couple of brief words with him. He like asked me like the relationship between Extinction Rebellion and Animal Rebellion, quite
Okay.
amicable.
Oh.
And I guess that's the sort of thing. It's like I think you mentioned it actually. It's like people switch when they go live on air, and it's like they try to disarm you with a bit of nicety before. So yeah, that was kind of what that was, in my opinion, at least.
Right. Yeah. That it makes sense, because he seems like a bit of a schemer, like somebody who'd do that. And I've seen him do it on air, like, and I've seen him do it, and I'm sure he's doing it off air as well. I think even Joey mentioned this when he went on once. The producers were trying to wind him up, like trying to wind Joey up before he went on, and he said he was laughing at them, like, "You're not going to do this, mate. Just drop it."
Yeah,
And so they do play these tricks to try to get some. It's just to try and get entertaining
and yeah,
content. You can't really blame them for going for it, I suppose. I mean, they're just trying to put something out, but
it's exactly that. And
yeah,
it's with we actually, I mean, it's awful what happened to Orla in that interview, but we gained
yeah,
so much background insight and experience from that. So it's like she
right.
was like pre-interviewed like 3 times before that. She had a producer like
Oh,
sidling up to her in the green room, like trying to ask all these innocent questions about, oh, I'm thinking about going vegan. You know, what do you eat?
okay,
So like we went into this appearance with a lot more wisdom and a lot more experience,
right,
and just like refusing to play the game, basically, like refusing to be the dancing monkey, for
right.
want of a non-speciesist term.
That's really sad that they did that with Orla. So I guess they softened her up, got her to think, oh, there's some people on my side, and then obviously Piers is the opposite in every way. But yeah, that's really sad that they did that. So they kind of played on. I guess maybe it's a tactic from them to play on whatever energy you already have. Like, for example, Joey's energy is very, he gets irate, he gets worked up. So they try and make him more worked up, and maybe, with Orla, they felt, oh, maybe she's a very calm and maybe coming from a loving place.
Yeah.
Let's try and get her to be really calm and loving, and then go on, and Piers can absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, she's a children's nurse, and that is the energy that
Right.
she like exudes like day to day. It's just like lovely, caring person for all life.
And that's exactly what they did then. That's so sad that they're just taking advantage of that, and to treat it, considering that now, it makes it so much worse what he did, and how horrible he was to somebody who's a children's nurse. I mean, did he know that? Do you know that did they know her background? Like, they knew what she did for a job?
We definitely told them before.
So that's really it's the biggest mismatch you can think of. Piers Morgan against the children's nurse. I mean, what yeah, what do you expect is going to happen? Of course, he's going to aggressor someone. Is going to be the aggressor in that scenario. It's a complete mismatch, completely unfair. Yeah, but it doesn't surprise me with him. And now we've got more of the insight. It doesn't surprise me with his team either. Seems like they're all in on it. So you, in yours, I think you got him on the back foot a couple of times. You mentioned his face changed with the Meghan Markle stuff. Were there any moments that they edited to not show his face? Is there anything that you watching the video back? Was there any moment where you see they're trying to hide him being on the back foot, or I suppose, just is there any moment you feel that you really got him apart from that one, that maybe what they didn't show?
I think it's at the end, when I've watched it back, where he says like, "Oh, you're not an expert," and then like, "No, neither of you. You should listen to them." My mic audio is very quiet in the video that they've put out.
Right.
Like, I had shouted that over him, and it's something that has happened. And Talk TV do mute your mic if they want to mute your mic in the studio.
Right.
Got it. And then, like, especially, I suppose, when I showed the bingo cards to audience, there was a solid 3-4 seconds where I was holding it up directly in front of one of the studio cameras, and they've chosen not to do the zoom. They've chosen not to show the bingo card. That's conscious production choice.
That's a real shame, because I think comparatively, I think if somebody went on to, say, like Ben Shapiro, for example, or Steven Crowder, those guys would love that. They would zoom in on it and they would love it, because I feel like with those guys, although they're I mean, on veganism, Ben Shapiro is not nowhere near as bad. Crowder he's very bad. But I think they would relish the game, and they would play it because it's good for entertainment, and they would relish the opportunity to take you down despite you coming with that, right?
Yeah.
Whereas he's a coward. Him and his team are a coward. That's why they didn't do that. That's why they didn't play along with it. Say what you will about all these, there's lots of these types of Pierses out there, but credit where credit's due. I think some of the similar ones to him would have played along, and it just says a lot about his character that he didn't, that his production team didn't, which is, it's a shame, really. It would have been good for them, I think. I don't think they even realized it would have been the video would have done even better if they'd have zoomed in and played the game. What else was on the card? That was a question that came up from one of my subscribers.
So the ones that we got was personal choice, you're a hypocrite, almonds and avocados, Meghan Markle, and bringing in a steak or a burger.
Right.
There's 4 left that we didn't get. It was like a sad montage. He mentions insects. He starts shouting, or he goes red. Those are the ones that we didn't get.
Oh man, the red one. Oh, that would have been brilliant. That would have been. I think that one would have been as almost as effective as the Meghan Markle one if he started, because he does, doesn't he? Yeah, he gets worked up. But with you, surprisingly, he didn't seem to get quite as worked up. Maybe he's I don't know. Maybe he's kind of done with it, but his production team just keep bringing vegans on, and he can't be bothered anymore.
It's actually quite interesting. It's like, I think he wasn't showing it when we were on air, but like there was like a grudging respect there. Like, as soon as we cut away and we went off air, he gave me like a little smile and was like, "Fair enough."
Oh, really? Okay, that's interesting.
So maybe that's why he didn't lose it and go full on.
He's enjoying it.
Yeah, maybe enjoying it, and also maybe seeing, like, maybe coming to that realization, if he does lose it, like, I've won. there.
Right.
Like
Right.
that is
Right.
like the the drag down knockout win of that interview. If he loses it
Mm.
at me, when I've come in
Yeah.
with the mentality that I've come in with,
Mm.
he's allowed him to get riled up whilst I'm just sat there.
Good point. Yeah, good point. He probably respects on some level that you played the game rather than because yeah, a lot of people that he's dealt with, vegans he's dealt with, they've come in and they have an agenda and that's all they're there for, which makes good entertainment for him. But if you come in and play his game and actually your agenda, you had an agenda, of course, you have the things you want to say, but they actually were less of a priority in this interview. The main priority was just to basically go in and take him on. And I think I guess he does appreciate that because that's the kind of guy he is, I suppose. He doesn't bring anybody on hardly to actually hear what they have to say. He just wants to play a game with them. So you realized that and gave him something
Yeah.
different, which I suppose he appreciated at least a little bit. But cool. No, it's good. I don't know. The guy is such a buffoon. It is nice to know that he at least acknowledged you a little bit after the interview and was like, fair enough. At least it makes him a little bit more human and less of the monster that like we perceive him to be, like most people perceive him to be. It's not as depressing when you put it like that. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
it's kind of
no,
sad to
yeah.
think someone like him exists, right? You want to believe that he's not really like that. If you believe he is, it's like, oh god, someone like him is out in the world. It's just nasty, isn't it? So what were you looking for a specific outcome to this? Because obviously you mentioned the strategy going in, but they invited you for interview. Is this how it works? So they invite you,
Yeah,
right? They reach
yeah.
out to Animal
So
Rebellion,
like
right?
when we like send out the press release, it'll go to
Yeah.
obviously producers of TV shows, newspapers, journalists,
Mm,
and then it's very easy for them to come back and say, "All right, can you come and talk to us about this
right.
at this slot, this time," and just take it from there, really.
So that's how it goes then. So in this case, it could be argued that you could have also just said no, right? I won't go on. But clearly you wanted to go on because there's an outcome you wanted
Yeah.
from this. So what was that outcome
So what
then?
the
Because
outcome
we know
is,
the strategy. What was
I
the
think
outcome?
it has worked quite well in terms
Mm,
of the amount of social media engagement with this.
right.
But not only that, it's translated into like tangible material results of more people interested in taking action with Animal Rebellion.
Great.
People, when
Okay.
they've been phoned up to have a little talk about, oh, you filled out an interest form, you've said, you'd be keen to hear about us. They mention it
Mm,
in the last couple of days when they've been
right.
called up.
Okay.
So like it's kind of like it might sound like quite cold to say, but like this interview is the proxy for the
Mm,
exposure,
okay.
which
Yeah.
has been successful, in my opinion.
Yeah, which is it's so basically it's kind of like it was a publicity stunt basically to get Animal Rebellion more out there, and it's pretty harmless publicity stunt too because really there's no you're just going on TV fooling around with some numpty, and then you get lots more people learning about what it is Animal
Mhm.
Rebellion is and signing up. It's a win-win really, isn't it? All you're really losing is a bit of time, and the people who already hated you will hate you more, and that's pretty much how it'll go. The people that are not interested will be
Mhm.
still not
I
interested.
suppose maybe a secondary outcome that comes in is like
Mm,
there's this like stereotype of who vegans are, especially when you talk about GB News, Talk TV,
mhm. Yeah.
etc. Of like we're these boring, feeble little people who are just going to lecture you, and it's like going in there, and it's like I'm not going to be that person. I'm not that
Mhm.
person.
Yeah.
Like you're not that person either, are you?
No, no.
And it's kind of putting that little niggling doubt into people's heads of like, wait, Piers has told me that these lot are aggressive, pale,
Mm.
pasty, you know, but this person in front of me is not. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. We'll never be able to win this kind of battle of ideals though, because with you now, you went in and did something that's new and it's different and refreshing and show, like you said, you're showing that we're not all the same. but you're being labeled as arrogant, that you didn't know what you were talking about, you had no arguments. And then, okay, so Joey Carbstrong goes on. He gives all the arguments. So no, he's too aggressive and he's interrupting all the time, and he's just a lecturer, whatever. Ola goes on. People say, oh, they felt bad for Ola. To be fair, a lot of people did say Piers was unreasonable, but then I'm sure a few people would be saying, laughing at her, like, "Oh, she's such a, she's a pussy vegan, typical pussy vegan, can't handle the heat, blah blah blah." So it really, no matter what you do in this interview with Piers, it's people will see it through this negative lens and say, "Typical vegan, too angry. Typical vegan, taking the piss. Typical vegan, too soft." So and when you step outside for a second, you realize now Piers has had a variety of vegans from a variety of places with a variety of different attitudes, when clearly not all the same. Just watch his interviews back to back and you'll see different people with different vibes and different angles. So he's kind of disproven himself by having so many vegans on at this point, because none of them have been the same, have they?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We've got a point of contention here, right? Now, you can tell the truth or you can lie. This is completely up to you. I'd prefer you to tell the truth, but I've got to ask the question, all right? Do you really not eat almonds and avocados, and do you really only eat local seasonal fruit and veg? Or was that a tactic to avoid Piers's obvious traps?
So I don't, like, as part of my like standard day-to-day diet, eat like almonds or
Cool.
avocados. Like, I'm not going to deny that I've ever eat almonds and avocados, because I have.
Yeah.
But like when I talk about my day-to-day, they don't feature in it. Like
Yeah.
and then like on the local like seasonal fruit and veg, like where I can, I make that a priority. Like I live in Wood Green in North London. I don't really have a farmer down the road. Although in Wood Green there are actually a couple of good stalls which are local seasonal fruit and veg. But like the second one of those especially, it was me deliberately framing the argument around, vegans hate farmers, you want them all to lose their jobs.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I framed that in a way that meant he couldn't engage with it.
That was smart. Yeah. Totally. I totally saw that. The second you said that you love local farming and British farming, I knew immediately you disarmed him. That was really a strong moment, actually a really good tactic. I was just curious as to whether it was true or not. That's all. Because I
Yeah, for
understand
the most part,
yeah.
it is. And it's also
Yeah.
like, I'm fully aware of the arguments around like almonds and avocados, right? Like I feel comfortable talking to anyone about that. But like
Yep.
going back to like framing, it's like Piers brought it up. Piers was framing that discussion.
Yeah,
So like
absolutely.
perhaps like I say I go back on, I might have a strategy
Mm.
around that of like, how do I frame this discussion?
Sure. I totally get it. Yeah, you're in the lion's den. He's in control.
Mm.
He's framing everything. If you wanted to get into that debate, you know exactly what he's going to do. He's not going to allow you to explain yourself. He's not going to allow you to. He's going to put some stupid thing on with bees and some soft music, and you're going to be sat there trying to make a point. So I understand. Yeah, I understand the reason to not get into that debate. But yeah, sorry to put you on the spot there, but I had to
It's
ask.
all right.
I've got to ask the tough questions,
Absolutely.
you know.
You know what I will say? Something that I've been thinking about since is like,
Yeah.
what is the reason that like that out of habit I don't have those products? And it's like,
Mm,
I know, like, is it like the stigma that's associated with them, whether it's like the environment
mm,
or with like the pollinators, like like
right.
why is it that like myself and probably a lot of vegans feel it's like,
Mm,
oh, I shouldn't have almonds, shouldn't have avocados because it makes me a bad vegan. And like I know, having a bit of a deep reflection on that, and like I know the conclusion I've come to is like there shouldn't feel that stigma, right? You know,
mm,
it's like talk about the steak that was on that plate, like how many millions, if not billions, of like insects and pollinators were murdered to grow the soy that was fed to that cow, right?
mhm.
And then the cow obviously is brutally murdered and then butchered for the steak.
Yeah, yeah. And then as somebody here in front of you is eating that regularly, or even eating that in front of you at one point, and he wants to talk to you about bees and almonds. Yeah, it's an interest. What you said about framing is absolutely 100% correct, because when he's framing it, he avoids the spotlight on himself, and you will not be able to turn the spotlight round because he's in command. It's his show. It's his people. So yeah, it's one of the main things that annoys me about him is that he gets to point the finger, but it's really hard to turn it around on him. You make him point it at himself. You just won't allow it, but it needs to happen, right? But it's a good conversation. But that's a good point you brought up about the reflecting on the avocados and the almonds, and I might try and put something together on that myself. Some, like, I don't know, some skit or something about it. So let's talk about Aldo, actually, because we've not really spoken about him much. So at the beginning of this interview, he seemed like he was going to be a bridge between you and Piers, that someone in the middle ground mediator, but that didn't seem to last, because a combination of Piers riling him up and you trying to play the game with Piers, I feel like it put him off you, which was a shame, because obviously you weren't there to piss Aldo off. You were there to piss Piers off, but Aldo ended up getting pissed off anyway, right? Which was a shame. But with him, just a question about he was upset about you maybe going to his restaurants, right? But he said his restaurants have veggie and vegan options. So am I right in assuming that he wouldn't get targeted by Animal Rebellion because he is not as big a part of the problem as other players in this game that are way bigger, or is he actually on the chopping block from you guys?
Well, what I'd say is, there's, I don't want to say like worse offenders. That sounds very blamey, but like, yeah, when you look at like Salt Bay's restaurants, for example, like their selling point is the animal product, is the steak, is the exploitation. Gordon Ramsay, whose restaurant we occupied a few weeks back, I did the TikTok of him with like the lambs on the farm, where he's talking to them as food, right? And like, there's no attempt to be made. Similarly to, Manor up in Manchester, that like the first thing on their FAQs is, we do not cater to a vegan diet.
Okay.
So it's like, yeah, there's so many of these restaurants out there. It's like, like Aldo's, like, fair play to him. He was a lovely chap. I know that there's other targets that would seem more appropriate for this kind of action.
Yeah. So yeah. So that's kind of what I was thinking, and it was a shame, because I guess you could have told him that, but the second you tried to speak to him, Piers kept talking and interrupting. You never actually. I don't think you even got a chance for even one interaction with Aldo, like uninterrupted, right? Which was a shame. But what is there anything there that you? I mean, what was he like? What was Aldo like after all of this? Was he buddy with you, or was he kind of riled up?
So afterwards, he was all right. And I actually haven't seen right to the end of the interview, but like at the end, like whilst we were still on air, me and Aldo were having a bit of a laugh and a joke.
Okay.
Like he like said something along the lines of, like, I'll maybe see you eating a vegan dish in one of our restaurants.
Okay,
like, give me a pat on the back, and had a bit of a laugh. I don't know if they showed that, but then it's like, and then we went to come in. Oh, it doesn't surprise me. And like when we came off set, like he did make a point of like saying, "Oh, like well done, like good job," and like shaking my hand, which I do respect him for, and like being able to. I think he's someone that I could have a conversation with about these topics, like very seriously, over like a pint or two or a coffee. But yeah, no, I do take the point. It's like, maybe in that interview I could have reacted differently. I could have showed some more empathy and understanding of Aldo and his position. Could have been better for the overall kind of outcome.
Yeah, it was. I don't think that was. I mean, obviously you could have, but I don't think it was your fault necessarily that you didn't. I think you had a clear goal. You didn't know Aldo was going to be there, and I reckon the strategy might have been different if you knew, right? Because obviously you don't want to. You don't want to go 2v1. You don't want to piss off two people. You ideally, when there's one person that could be swayed, you want them on your side, right? And so I get that. But you had your goal was to play the game with Piers. It's just a shame they picked somebody whose business kind of depended on Piers winning, I suppose, if that makes sense. He couldn't have possibly supported you when he knows that you guys are going after his restaurant mates, right? It was always going to be a bit of a tough one to. But nice that he seemed like a nice dude.
Yeah.
When he grabbed your neck at the end, we were laughing about that because he squeezes your neck and says, "Don't come to my restaurant." And it was either very friendly and jokey, and you touched. I saw you touched his knee, and you were like, it was nice, or it was like a kind of one of those, you know, people smile and squeeze your neck, but really they're like, don't come to my fucking restaurant. Like, I will not put up with your shit. I wasn't sure if it was like maybe like a little bit leaning that way. Like, what vibe did you get at that point?
I got like friendly but firm vibes from Aldo. Yeah, seemed like this is yeah. No, yeah, I don't think there was any
I got
like,
the
real
same.
malice in there.
No. I got this. That's what I mean. It was friendly but firm vibe at the end. There. It was a funny little moment right at the end. We had a laugh at that. It was
Mm.
definitely a good one. And, so let's talk about Animal Rebellion then. And
Mhm.
actually, you've been going into these, like you said, was it Man Up? You said it was in Manchester. I've never heard of this place.
Yeah,
I've not been to Manchester for a long time. And the Salt Bays restaurant, and you occupied them. So you went in there, and I've not actually seen the videos or anything. I only saw the stuff from Piers's
yeah.
clips. So what did you actually do in the restaurants?
So I wasn't there personally, but it's like
Okay.
kind of make a point of like dressing up like smart.
Mm.
These are places where people generally dress smart to go and
Yeah.
like step into that world. Just like very calmly file in. They take up one table each, which
Mm.
obviously means they can't sit bookings at the tables.
Yeah.
Kind of generates a little bit of drama there, and then just like the overall kind of thing is like these are very high end restaurants. Their
Mm-hmm.
symbol is of the broken system that we're in, as I said in an interview. And there's kind of I see there's kind of like three parts of that. It's like this broken relationship that we have to non-human animals and a natural world, right? Such that we're like systematically exploiting their bodies and profiting from it. I say we just in general as a society, obviously. Then obviously you can't ignore we're in a cost of living crisis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've got 1,500 quid getting charged for steak. You know,
Yeah.
London has one of the highest levels of wealth inequality in the world. And then the climate and ecological emergencies, steak, like, grass-fed beef is the single worst product for the environment.
Okay.
So that in these actions, that is kind of, bringing these together. It's like high-end restaurants, like we've targeted like Harrods and Fortnum and Mason in the past on this kind of similar idea of like, really, right now, like these places exist whilst 2 million people are relying on food banks in the UK, whilst 76
Mm-hmm.
billion land animals are slaughtered for human consumption every year,
Mm-hmm.
whilst 33 million people are displaced by floods in Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the kind of in a nutshell, I guess, behind those ones.
And so the aim of sitting in the places and taking up is it a economic damage you're hoping to do like at this point, or is it to get in the like what is the what the outcome of these specific, what is the hope of the outcome of these specific
So yeah,
sit-ins?
that's a great one. It's kind of it's like maybe you see it's like you can either do material disruption or you can do cultural disruption, and this like very much leans more into the cultural disruption.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I know you've talked about, I'm like the biggest fan of like the milk pause. Like in
Mm-hmm.
reality, that really wasn't material disruption. It was cultural, right? A lot of people were really, really angry, and they didn't know why. Like they
Right.
couldn't put their finger on it. And it's like the same here.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a lot of people are very, very angry, and they can't quite put their finger on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about getting into the media. It's about talking about it. It's about hopefully engaging people to have this conversation at the dinner table or at the pub
Right.
without us even being in a picture.
Mm. It's like, I think this is I think this action speaks to people in a few different ways. I think something that I don't know if you already have touched on this, but I think this would be a really good angle, and something I'm passionate about is the class struggle, and how actually most of people generally, like worldwide, have far more in common with each other than they have with billionaires. But for some reason we are so quick to turn on each other and not turn on the billionaires. And I don't mean that every billionaire is a bad person or something like that, but I'm saying there are, in most occasions, the ones who have the most power are maintaining that power by shitting on the ones who have no power,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think this is where your recent actions really go with that, because you're attacking these elite places, where most people cannot afford that, will never be able to afford that, would not even want to afford that, with these people who potentially, some of them are, experiencing massive amounts of profit off the backs of people who will never get anywhere even near that, like exploitation, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or borderline that. So, yeah, I don't know. Is that part of Animal Rebellion's kind of, I don't know, approach to this? Is this something that's been considered to try to get people to unite against these kind of exploitative, I don't know, you call it elite people, elite organizations, and actually to have them listen to what the people want and try to unify more people in that?
Yeah, so it's something like we have talked about a lot recently, and like
Mm.
publicly put out. It's like, if you look at the UK alone example right now, like the trade unions are taking like the biggest action they have like since the 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nurses are going to be walking out on strike. The RSPB have said that they're not ruling out direct action.
Wow.
And
Okay.
just like bringing it in, it's like, well, everyone is absolutely furious at the system we're in and how they have been failed by it,
Mm.
and trying to
Yeah.
like bring in that energy of like, all right, you might have like our slight differences about the single issue stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
overarching thing is like the system is serving a 1%, right? Like
Mm.
all it's doing, BP's profits are soaring. The train company execs are on millions a year, um, and bringing that in
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. I think that's really, and especially it's become more evident over the last couple of years because of the pandemic really brought that difference into clear focus, when we've got people being locked down, they can't go and see their families, people's grandparents dying, and they can't go to the funeral. Then you've got, what's his name, Matt
Yeah.
Hancock, going over to his mistresses, and you've got
Hmm.
Boris and his team having parties. And I think people kind of knew in the back of their minds that we're different, and that these people are kind of above the law. And it was always kind of a thing that we're like, yeah, okay, it's kind of a thing that we know, but it's not really like that. And then pandemic hit, and lockdowns, and then we saw, actually, no, it is like that. These
Hmm.
people truly don't care about you, and they, like
Yeah.
you said, it's serving the 1%, right? Most
Mhm.
systems serve this 1%. I think that's something that I wish people would realize. When I don't know if Piers would fall into that 1%. I don't know if he's quite that rich, but it would be great if the Pierses of the world, and at least his followers, realize that, like you just said, although we might have differences of opinion on things, it's worth trying to figure it out, because ultimately we need to bond together against these scumbags who, you know, rise above, who put us in these positions of struggle, but benefit massively from us being
Hmm.
in these positions of struggle, right?
Yeah, and it's like, I know it's like things like that really chimes in when it's like when you look at veganism, it's like at its core, it's like it's an anti-oppression position, right? You
Mhm.
know, like that is recognizing like if you want to be anti-oppression, you have to extend that to non-human animals. Like,
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's inconsistency is what it is. It's the same as, so it's the same as if somebody is claiming that they are for like equality, they want to help people who are struggling, poor people, let's say they want to help the poor, they want to help the homeless because they don't think they deserve to suffer. It's inconsistent to then go make animals suffer because you want a snack. The same way as it's inconsistent if a vegan says, they hate poor people, screw them, they deserve it. Well, that's also inconsistent, because
mhm.
why would you hate on, you're hating on someone because of their financial situation, something they're whatever
Yeah.
unable to control, but you don't hate on animals for something arbitrary. That, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's about, it's consistency and inconsistency. A lot of people don't seem to realize that, they, yeah, it's there's definitely some inconsistencies with people. um and I think the more we can highlight that and get people to realize we're mostly in the same boat, aside from a couple of tiny disagreements, and stand together against these, like I said, these scumbags that benefit from us not standing together, right?
Hmm.
That they benefit from us not getting along, and they want to keep it that way. That's why there's a lot of division right now.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't doubt that it's being stoked. The fire's being stoked. The flames of division are being, you know, pumped up. They're pouring gasoline all over it. The people that want to keep us here. That's not. Sounds like a conspiracy theory, doesn't it? Do you think? Do you think it is?
Oh no, no.
Are we like conspiracy nuts right
No,
now?
I think this is like, I don't even think it needs to be justified. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of, look at the media. It's like 80%, give or take, of the British media is owned by 3 billionaires who all have non-dom status. Like,
What was that? So what's that? What
all
did you
of
say?
them
What's
have
the
like
status?
non-dom status, so that their tax like isn't registered in the UK. Like they're not.
Okay.
It's just kind of, look at Rupert Murdoch, like as one example, right? He has a very clear agenda, and because he owns so many of these outlets, like this can be projected as a accepted status quo message.
Right.
Blame the Albanian immigrants for stealing your job. Whilst government ministers are pocketing millions in bonuses from the PPE contracts and cutting the NHS funding, right?
Right.
It just becomes so
Right.
easy to blame the person next to you rather than the person sat on the golden throne in Parliament. To give it a
Yeah.
bit of an analogy.
Definitely. Yeah, you're totally right. Yeah, it's the it's the vegans' fault that you're angry because the vegans spoken to you about something to do with ethics. They're the reason that my life's shit. It's like, oh, come on, mate. A difference of opinion is not worth falling out over, but people seem to be doing that more than ever these days, and they're not willing to listen.
Mm-hmm.
We should be bonded by our similarities and then debate the differences,
Yeah.
not just hate each other because of small differences when we're in the same boat on so much that's so much more important. Well, not more important. We're in the same boat on a lot that is important. We should be able to figure the other stuff out, shouldn't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then people like Piers, to circle it back round, they look at people like the people that like Piers hate you because of him. And it's a real shame because what you're trying to do will help them. Actually, you're actually, the work you do is it's obviously focused on animals. It's focused on the environment, but yeah, it's going to benefit these people, and
Mm-hmm.
that's part of the reason you're doing it is people.
Oh
Which
yeah,
is
yeah,
it's a shame they don't
absolutely.
see that.
I just like seeing it's like I don't think you can have like social justice if you don't have environmental and animal justice.
Mm-hmm.
They come as a package. I think.
Oh, good luck trying to sell that to the non-vegan different social justice movements. They tend to despise vegans for some reason. They come out with all the veganism's racist, veganism's this, veganism's that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure you've had your fair share of that.
Yeah.
We get it from all angles, don't we? As vegans,
Mm-hmm.
it comes from everywhere.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks we're just trying to ruin their life. Like Piers said, why are you ruining these people's days? Why are you ruining these people's lives? What cruelty and abuse? What was it
Yeah.
that Aldo called it? Abusing him, man.
And it's like
I couldn't believe it when he said
it
that.
was like when I watched Joey's interview with Piers and Susanna Reid back like before I went and did the Piers interview, and it's like when Joey is like pouring his heart out and talking about like 50% of the cows in the dairy industry are going to be slaughtered and butchered for meat, and then like the response is, well, that's an efficient use of the animal.
Right.
Like I was just jaw dropped watching that back. It was just like,
Yeah.
it's like
The thing is, yeah, and the thing is, mate, it's like Joey. Joey just isn't just talking out of his arse. He does a lot of undercover work, and he's seen a lot of this stuff firsthand, as have I. And then when and I don't know your experiences as being on farms and seeing this kind of stuff, but most vegans have either seen it in person or they've seen it from somebody else who saw it and filmed it. These people who are saying stuff like, "Oh, it's a good use of the animal," I mean, they've clearly not seen it, right? And they've not been there. They've not fully processed the fact that this is in this case like a mother cow or a baby boy cow. It could be being killed. They're just thinking of purely as a product, and they can't switch out of that mode, because if they do, they lose the argument immediately, because you're not going to be able to argue with Joey if you acknowledge that they are not products, right? So Yeah,
You know,
it's a
something like,
complex.
I don't know if I've said it there, but like I need to correct myself on a lot. Is like animals are theys, they're not its.
Mhm.
Which I like. I
Yeah.
know it's pervasive. Like even like so many vegans I do still hear using that, but it's like
Oh, totally.
it's so
Yeah.
crucial. Like we recognize like the personhood of non-human animals. You know, they've got families, they've got lives. You know, they have
Mm.
emotions.
Definitely. Do you know, actually, I learned something recently that the correct pronoun, if you don't know the gender of an animal, is it. The sex of an animal is it, actually.
Oh,
It's just really weird how we've moved away from that because of obvious reasons, because it dehumanizes we to call someone an it makes them an object. And I agree that well, yeah, this is whether I agree or disagree, it doesn't matter. This is how we evolved. The language got to where it is. So it's technically correct to say a baby is an it. Is technically correct if you don't know an animal is a boy or girl to say it, but you're totally right that it doesn't matter if it's technically correct. If you say a baby's an it, I've heard people say it, and I find it so strange and wrong to say a baby's an it if you don't know
mm,
if they're a male or female. I say they until I know, right? And the same for animals for the exact same reason, because it feels like my a lamp. This cup isn't it. I would never hold a baby or an animal to the same meaning as a cup.
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, it's hard to get out of that habit.
Hmm.
Even my mum, who's been vegan longer than me, even she to this day says it, and it's not meant as any kind of, obviously in her case she doesn't mean it in a bad way, but yeah, it still it cringes me a little bit. I'm like, oh, you love animals so much, don't refer to them like they're objects.
Yeah,
It's like an it
exactly,
is.
exactly.
Yeah, it's a weird one. So what's your plan then for moving on from now for Animal Rebellion? I suppose what can you tell me? Uh, I guess you guys keep it pretty closed off, right, until the day. But is there anything big to look out for? Is there any dates out already for any upcoming events, protests? What's
Yeah,
coming for
well,
you
the
guys?
restaurant sit-ins are going to be continuing. It's very easy if anyone wants to get involved in that. You know, it's one click away on our Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or our website.
Mhm.
You know, get involved in one of those. Great way, and like just this community in general. And then, you know, as we head into 2023, we already announced a date and organisation for the National Animal Rights March
Great.
next year. And if you know anything about Animal Rebellion, it's not going to be A to B march. There'll be a few fun things happen on the way. And yeah, there are some big plans in the works coming up, but yeah, can't exactly
Cool.
disclose
Yeah, yeah, I
those
got you. I got
details.
you. Will the Animal Rights March be anywhere near the date of the camp out by any chance? So people can.
It
Is that,
is. Oof, the date has escaped me. It's in August, so I think it's after vegan camp out. I believe.
it's a shame. I don't know how much sway you have, but I would highly recommend having it closer to the camp out so that you can catch all the people who come from other countries and they might extend
Mm.
their stay just to join that's worked really well before a couple of years ago. There was like they estimated like 10,000
Yeah.
people, and I think a lot of that came because people were in the country anyway for the camp out,
Hmm.
and there were at least a good couple of hundred people more just because of that,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know, just a, because I'll be in the country and I'd love to come to the march, but
Hmm.
I won't be able to stay for
Yeah.
that long. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just change the date for me. Just change it to near the camp out so I can come. Will you be going to the vegan camp out yourself?
Maybe. I haven't thought that far ahead yet. And it's like
Okay.
also just like on quite a serious note. I
Mm.
have a Crown Court trial next April. That,
Okay. Okay.
it's for actions that I took with Just Stop Oil. Which like
Okay.
I might be in prison by then, so
Damn. Yeah,
I'll
that's
be paid by year.
Jesus. Just Stop Oil, those guys. I mean, that's a whole other
Mhm.
topic, but those guys are hardcore, man. They're doing some I've seen some stuff, seen some stuff on Twitter, not by Just Stop Oil, but by people who are riled up
Yeah.
from the actions. They're posting some viral videos and stuff. You guys getting kicked and dragged about all over the bloody place. I've seen. Did that happen to you? Did you get dragged along or
Well,
assaulted by anyone?
I was dragged off a football pitch. That wasn't very fun.
Right.
Yeah, kind of
God.
most of them. It's like the actions that I took. They weren't like in public view.
Okay.
In terms of like for one that I already have a conviction for is aggravated trespass. So it was inside an oil terminal.
Okay.
And then, yeah, they weren't public around at the spaces we were.
Right, they could put you in prison for that. I thought that would just be some kind of fine or community service
So
or something
the
like
aggravated trespass was a conditional discharge. So it's like, don't be naughty for a little while. But the one that's Crown Court, it's a trial for criminal damage over the value of £5,000.
Okay. So that's like, okay.
Yeah.
So that's a bit different then.
Yeah. But
right.
Yeah, if anything, that's motivation for me to be like, I'm going to be doing as much as I can now in case that I can't be doing things.
What did you break? Are you allowed to say?
So allegedly caused over £5,000 worth of damage to petrol pumps at a motorway services on M25.
Jesus. Okay. Right. I can see how that's going to be. They're going to probably. I would hope not, but yeah, there's a chance they'll make an example of you on that then, I guess, because that's I've seen people. If you thought people were riled up about the animal rebellion stuff, that that's nothing compared to how pissed off people are getting about the Just Oil stuff, and that's a whole other. Maybe we can have you back on just for a conversation about the Just Oil stuff, because that's something I'll be honest with you, I am totally ignorant in. I've really not looked into exactly what's going on there. The last thing I saw and I wasn't impressed with was a guy from Just Stop Oil went on GMB and just did a bad job. Like, he just shouted at people and got upset and wasn't explaining. And do you know who I'm talking? I don't want, obviously I'm not going to ask your opinion on this because it's not fair for you to talk about your fellow guys, but do you remember this? Do you remember the one I'm talking about?
It could be one of a couple, I guess.
It was a main guy. I think he was the guy even, I don't know. It was, wait, is it? No, it wasn't this. Sorry, it was a different guy. It's Insulate Britain guy. I'm getting mixed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that guy is what I was talking about. So
maybe.
Could have been, yeah. I'm getting my wires crossed. That's not the same person. So yeah, I don't know anything about either. Actually, I don't know Insulate Britain. I don't know Just Stop Oil. I don't live in England right now, so I'm really out of the loop with a lot of what's going on. But would you come back on to talk about that?
I'd love to have that discussion. Yeah.
Cool, man. Brilliant. So I'll get some questions from people from like UK audience. So I'm sure there's a lot of people from the UK who've got a lot of questions about the Just Stop Oil stuff, because it's I mean, it's pissing people off. Like I said, way more than the animal rebellion stuff. People are getting really riled up about that. So I'm sure we'll have some questions in the comments about that. And do you want us to just plug Animal Rebellion website, or do you have any social media that you want people to go to? Or
that'd be grand. Yeah, the website's grand. Or Twitter is @RebelsAnimal. Facebook is Animal Rebellion. Instagram, I believe, is Animal Rebellion as well. And getting involved with taking action is just a click away from any of those. And this. I should have said it earlier. Like none of this is about me. This interview wasn't about me. It's about the exposure and bringing people into this movement. Because if we are going to win, the animal liberation movement is going to win. It needs everyone in whatever capacity they can participate. That's bottom line.
Totally. No, definitely. I totally agree. It's a great point to finish on. And thanks again for coming on and getting into all this. And congrats again on playing Piers at his own game and successfully putting him on the ropes. It's nice to see that it can be done. And now you've cracked him. So now any other vegan that goes on, you're just going to work off your foundation. So thanks for that, mate. You can check out Animal Rebellion's website. The link is in the description and also in the pinned comment. So get over there and click to sign up. Thanks again, mate. Great talking to you.